Okay, and so another major foreign policy event that President Carter had to deal with was the Iranian Revolution and the effects of that. Okay, as I said earlier, because of the turmoil in Iran, that was what led to higher gas prices and those longer lines back in '79. But anyway, so it's the Iranian Revolution that caused that stuff. So let's look at it. This began as a popular democracy movement, but ultimately ended with the establishment of the world's first Islamic state. That's a theocracy. Iran has a theocracy right now, which means a theocracy is a government that is based off of a religion. In Iran, that religion happens to be Islam, but it does not necessarily have to be based off that. So let's look at the Iranian Revolution. First off, the Shah. Shah is, I'm assuming, Farsi, which is the language that they speak in Iran, is Farsi for king. So the king, King or Shah Reza Pahlavi, and a circle of his relatives and friends ruled Iran. Okay, and they're going to benefit from themselves. The gap between the rich and the poor increased in the 1970s, and anger towards him started in response to economic problems and the Shah's oppressive style. He didn't let them express themselves religiously, and so that's bad. That is, that's if you oppress your people and you're really strict on them, eventually the pressure is going to build up, and you can look forward to having a revolution. But we don't care about that. We're down with him. Here's a picture of Richard Nixon with the Shah. Okay, here's a picture of Jimmy Carter with the Shah. We're down with that. As long as we're benefiting economically from the situation in Iran, we are down with however you treat your people. Here's a picture of a painting that he had done of himself in all his grandiose clothing. Okay, so let's look at the Shah really quick. 2 minutes.
These Iranians pulled down the Shah's statue and sent him into exile, but only for a week. Assisted by the American Central Intelligence Agency, the Shah returned and re-established his power, presiding over a regime that controlled almost every facet of life in a big developing nation of more than 30 million people. The reason the United States intervened: Iran acts as a buffer between the Soviet Union and the Arab countries of the Middle East. It controls the Persian Gulf shipping routes that carry much of the oil used by Western Europe, Japan, and Israel. In 1961, the Shah began expropriating land from the wealthy and from Islamic religious leaders, turning some of it over to the peasants. 2 years later, Islamic priests led a revolt that also failed. Since then, rising oil prices have begun earning Iran $60 million a day from oil, $1,800 million a month, enough to build tall skyscrapers, to create an aura of royal opulence, enough money in a month to run the states of Arizona or Kansas for an entire year. But even though a small elite prospered, most Iranians suffered from a loss of traditional religious values, from a soaring cost of living, and from the brutality of the secret police, many of them trained by the CIA. In an interview with ABC News correspondent Barbara Walters, the Shah was once asked whether, with all his power, he might permit at least some criticism of his autocratic rule.
No.
Why not?
Because the person of the king is, it's even in French you have lèse majesté. You have a law in the world. You cannot insult the king.
Okay, and so because of all that kind of stuff is the reason that people had problems with them, okay? Moving on. Opposition to the Shah. Ayatollah Khomeini was a Shia cleric kicked out by the Shah living in Paris. It looks like Khomeini, but that K is silent. The bravest and most outspoken voice talking bad about the Shah, and that's why he was exiled, or he was kicked out and sent to Paris. The Ayatollah promised economic changes and a return to traditional religious values of Islam if he was put into power. A lot of people liked him in Iran, okay, and so he's going to definitely gain support. The departure of the Shah in the late 1970s, and numerous large and violent protests occurred. General strikes added to instability. In January 1979, Shah Pahlavi leaves Tehran, which is the capital of Iran, for an extended vacation, but he's never going to come back. Okay, so that's a picture of him leaving, or actually probably landing in the United States. which we'll talk about in a little bit. Yeah. Here's a picture of people knocking down his statues, which you'll see a little bit in a little bit. Also in a little bit. Khomeini returns from exile. Ayatollah Khomeini returns on February 1st, 1979, and the instability is going to increase because now here is a very motivational person, and he's going to increase the people getting crunk in the streets. And so street battles break out between Khomeini demonstrators, police, security forces, and the Shah supporters. So it's going to lead to definitely some combat, like pretty much every revolution is going to have. Okay, let's look at a quick video of the Shah. Excuse me, Ayatollah Khomeini saying that the Shah must go. This is a picture, just some video of Tehran before they actually speak with him, but it's only about 3 minutes long. It's not too bad. Okay, you can see definitely the effects of the fighting. Okay, burnt or flipped over cars as an Iranian soldier holding it down. Okay, a busted tank, which definitely would have been an effect of some of the fighting. Okay, Iranian troops on patrol during in Tehran. Okay, so they're openly carrying weapons. It's a very oppressive society. In this scene, what I think is going on, and I've watched this multiple times, is that they are showing examples of the Shah's secret police, what they have done to people opposing him. And so it is a picture photograph. So here is the dude before, and it looks like he's dead or maybe beaten right there. The Shah's kind of, it looks like he's just trying to downplay it. No, I'm not about that life. Or maybe he was like, you know, these people were talking bad about me and I'm a king. You can't have that, like he said earlier. Again, just going on and on, but doesn't seem too remorseful. I'm assuming some of those people were dead. More Iranian soldiers. And here we go with Khomeini.
Sir, you were described in some circles in the press as being anti-American. Does America have anything to fear if the Shah falls?
خیر ما به ضد ملت امریکا نیستیم. ما دولت امریکا برای اینکه پشتیبانی از شاه میکند و مخالفت با ملت ما میکند با اون مخالفیم نه با ملت امریکا.
No, there is no reason. We are not against the American people. We are against the American people and the American government because of their support of the brutal regime of the Shah.
خیر رفتن شاه کفایت نمی کند. باید رژیم به هم بخورد و تمام چیزهایی که مربوط به سلطنت است از بین برد تا ما قانع بشیم.
No, just merely going is not enough. The whole monarchy, the whole regime must be changed, and then we may be satisfied.
A monarchy is what they have. Okay, a monarchy has a king and a queen and blah blah, and so that's what the Shah was, a monarchy.
And a constitutional monarchy or something, a compromise is not in the works, is not acceptable.
Okay, a constitutional monarchy is a type of government like they have in England or in Denmark, where they still have a king and a queen and princes, and they live in a palace, and they're driven around in Bentleys and just treated like royalty, literally, but they have no real power. And so in my opinion, my humble opinion, constitutional democracies is the dumbest type of government because you're expending lots of money for these people to live extravagantly, and they serve no real function. And so he's saying, are you looking to have some sort of compromise with the Shah, with a constitutional monarchy, which would have that, but also a parliament or a Congress to debate issues? And so this is what his answer is.
No, the constitutional monarchy is not satisfactory to us.
And he's like, no, I'm not about that, okay? Cool. So, moving on. The actual fighting from February 11th, 1979, tanks moved through Tehran. So only 10 days after Khomeini gets there, some fighting broke out against the army, against some army units, but nothing major. In the end, the rebels won, and so the revolutionaries are going to break into the leading radio station of Tehran and broadcast. This is the voice of the revolution of the Iranian people. Now, the fact that these people who aren't very well armed, not very well trained, are able to defeat the active military Iran just goes to tell me, in my opinion, that the Iranian military probably wasn't very supportive of the Shah and didn't fight as hard as they could and were allowed to be defeated, and therefore the Shah is gone. And so the revolutionary era is going to begin. Ayatollah Khomeini wins the national referendum by a landslide, and he declares Iran an Islamic republic, so a theocracy based off of Islam. Khomeini appointed Iran's political and religious leader for life. And I want to say he passed away already, but up until his death, he was the medal. Okay? Carter and Iran. In 1979, the Shah entered the United States for medical treatment, sparking riots in Iran. He was a patient of MD Anderson in Houston. He had cancer. MD Anderson is the world's best cancer hospital. And so this king, the Shah, came here, and they were upset that we allowed him there. 2 weeks later, Iranian students seized 42 staff members of the American embassy in Tehran, Iran. Okay, these hostages would be held for over 444 days, over a year. President Carter staged a rescue attempt, but it failed. It was called Operation Eagle Claw. It was in the middle of the Iranian desert as this plane was refueling. A helicopter clipped one of its wings. It blows up. It kills like 4 Americans. It's just a huge catastrophe, and they take off. And the next day, the Iranians find it, and it's a lot of propaganda for them. America's image suffered because of our inability to free the hostages. They remained captive until the day Ronald Reagan was inaugurated as president in 1980. Later on, we found out Reagan was selling weapons to Iran. Is this a coincidence? I'm not going to tell you what I think. I just think it's kind of a crazy coincidence that he's released the first day that Reagan was become president, and that later on we find out that weapons were being sold illegally to Iran and the money given to the Contras in Nicaragua. But anyways, that's the Iran-Contra, which is in the Reagan presidency as well. But let's go ahead and watch the embassy being taken over in 1979.
The U.S. Embassy in Tehran has been invaded and occupied by Iranian students.
If you have ever seen a movie called Argo, it shows this event, and it also explains how we got I think it was 6 of them out within the week, but the other 42 were kept captive, like I said earlier, for 444 days, released on the first day of Reagan's presidency. Crazy. If you're not sure what an embassy is, the United States has an embassy in every country, and every country has an embassy in the United States. It is a building that represents the government of that country, and so everyone in that building were American government employees. Okay, and they had U.S. Marines there to defend them, but they were ineffective apparently, and they were held captive. That guy's holding up a white shirt or something like that. That's him saying he comes in peace.
Unfortunately, American soldiers shoot some of them.